How many different types of soy sauce are there? If you're like me, you probably said 2 or 3, but I'm afraid we're both wrong. There are 5 different types of soy sauce. And if you watched my Shibanuma soy sauce video, then you probably heard me talking about Kioke, which are the wooden barrels that are used in traditional soy sauce making. And Kioke Shoyu is an association that is promoting those 26 different soy sauce breweries that are using those traditional Kioke methods. I met these guys at the Food Expo in Japan, and they gave me one of every type. So today I'm going to be taste testing each of these and giving you my quick initial reaction, as well as some information about each type of soy sauce. The only issue is that each of these are kind of meant to go with different flavors. So to taste test it, I was a bit unsure what to use. The only thing that my British brain could think of was bread. I figured that it's kind of similar to rice, but also that it won't fall apart like rice when I just dip it into soy sauce. So enough talking, let's get tasting. I know this is really obvious, but all I can smell right now is soy sauce. So apparently one of the main things that differentiates each type of soy sauce is their soybean to wheat ratio. So we're starting with the Shiro, which has the lowest amount of soybeans. So it's actually mainly just wheat with a little bit of soybeans in there. So this one, it has the lightest color, and although it looks kind of brown in the bottle, when you put it into something, then it really doesn't put a lot of color into it. The information about this one is that it has a low soybean count in comparison to its wheat. It adds some sweetness and aroma to your dishes, and it has a short aging period of only a few months. Again, it's good for adding some flavor without adding any color. Let's use our little bread. Okay, so it's made a sort of slightly yellow tinge to the bread. You know, it kind of just looks like I put some butter on there or something. It smells almost a little vinegary. Okay, that was definitely way too much soy sauce. I'm gonna dip way less on the next one. Oof. But it does taste how it smells. Yeah, it's like a little bit salty, brings out some of the sweetness. I just dip my finger in it and see what it's like on its own. Oh, it's actually quite nice on its own. Yeah, definitely a bit vinegary. That's my main takeaway from this one. So this is meant to go with things like tofu, Japanese tamagoyaki, which is an omelette, and maybe even white fish sashimi, stuff like that. They also gave an example of using it for salad. Next up is Usukuchi. Usukuchi is light soy sauce. So you might have come across this abroad because sometimes recipes do use this. So this one we can already see it's getting darker. There's a kind of orangey hue to it. And it definitely smells a little bit more umami than the first one. So for this one, it's a soy to wheat ratio of 1:1. It's pretty salty. It has an aging time that is 3 months shorter than Koikuchi, so that means basically just 3 months. It adds some umami and a little bit of color, a sort of browny orangey color. Oh, I forgot that I was supposed to put less on it. I'll just have to take a smaller bite. Okay, so this one is a nice brown color. It's kind of like a marmalade or like toasted butter. Definitely got that fermentation smell to it. That's definitely saltier, but it's still quite mild and still has a little bit of the vinegary flavor. That's definitely starting to taste more like the soy sauce that I am used to. Some saltiness to it, but it's also got the umami and the sugary sweetness kind of coming through. It would go with things that are still mild and a little bit sweet. It's gonna get lost in anything that has too much overpowering flavors already. A lot of Japanese dishes would go quite well with this. Rice dishes, dashi-based dishes, so things like soba, noodles, sort of soupy dishes. By the way, all the information that I'm giving you is actually from the Kioke Shoyu website, so I'll put a link to them in the description, but it is all in Japanese. I'm not sponsored by them, but they have been very useful. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. The next one up is Koikuchi, which is the king of soy sauce. This is the one that you will be used to. This is the one that everyone has in their kitchen in Japan and is just used for everything. Like, you can put it on stuff, you can put it in cooking, you can do whatever you want with it. Yes, this one has a much more roasty smell to it, even though the only thing that gets roasted in soy sauce is wheat. And this has a soy to wheat ratio of 1:1 again. Koikuchi is aged for 6 months to 2 years. Some places do experiment with even further than that. This one is much more salty, more concentrated, and you can use it on anything. You can dip it, you can put it in sauces, just any way you want. But it does also give it quite a color. I'm gonna just cleanse my palate with some ginger water. Okay, let's go. Okay, this no longer looks like butter. This is now a very soy saucy color. It's got that kind of reddish brown hue. Much more salty, much more of the fermented flavors. Still a bit of that sort of vinegary acidity, but now there's also the umami to it. Those kind of really earthy flavors are starting to come out a lot more here. Oh, that was actually really good on its own. That would go so well with sushi. So although these ones would go with sort of white fish and white meat, maybe sort of vegetables, we're starting to get into the meaty side over here. So this one would go more with more fatty dishes. So more fatty foods, more fatty fish, maybe even steak. You kind of get to that point here. And then as we go further, it's gonna go even more meaty. Next one is Saishikomi. This is actually the darkest of all of them. I just followed Kioke Shoyu's scale and they have this one as second to last, so I think they've done it by umami, so I'm intrigued to find out what the last one tastes like in comparison to this one. So Saishikomi is basically adding soy sauce to soy sauce, so they basically just doubled the concentration of soy sauce, so it's just double everything. So it's a 1-to-1 ratio, but double the ingredients, double the aging time, double the power, I'm guessing. We're gonna see what it tastes like. Whoa. It's kind of like balsamic. It's so brown. Given that it's so dark, oh, okay. I was gonna say given that it's so dark, I thought it would be a lot saltier, but I kind of got an after effect of the salt. It is actually quite salty, but it's also really umami. I can see how this would go really well with a steak. I almost want to put chips in that. Yeah, it's just really earthy and has that kind of flavor that would really go well with meat. So Saishikomi is best to use with fatty foods and foods that already have a kind of rich flavor. If you use it with mild foods, then it's just going to totally overpower it. So they suggested to have it with things like fattier sashimi, like salmon and tuna, meat, gyoza, that has meat in it, I guess. But they also suggested to try it with ice cream, which could be very interesting. The new salted caramel. And the very last one we have is Tamari. You might have heard of Tamari. Sometimes this seems to be used in American recipes. And this one is really concentrated, very umami one with supposedly less salt. Let's see how it tastes. So this one has the highest soy to wheat ratio. Oh, I guess that's probably what they put the scale in. It has mostly soy with just a bit of wheat. It's aged for 2 to 3 years, so that's kind of where you get the concentrated flavors from. It's less salty and mainly just umami. So this has that sort of dark brown color, but I can see that it might have like a nice sheen, like gloss if you used it in a sauce. This one's gone back to being a little bit more vinegary. That does have the umami flavors. It's definitely less salty and less concentrated than the Saishikomi. I can see how it might go well with a slightly sugary sauce, like a glaze almost. It is best with fatty and rich foods, and they do actually recommend that you use it in sauces, so I'm glad I figured something out. So basically you can kind of think of these in the same way as wine. So these sort of lighter ones are like white wines, and then these darker ones are like red wines, and you use them in the same kind of way. So for these, you can use it with like fish and vegetables, and these are more the meaty and powerful flavors. You can kind of tell by their colors that they're going to have a milder or more concentrated flavor. If you learned anything, then please like the video, and if you want to learn more about the world of salt in Japan, then check out this video, and I'll see you next time.